Welcome to Writers Talk About Stuff, where writers talk about stuff. I'm Scott Coon, author of Rentsoc, Book 1, The Wizard, the Pirate, and the Steampunk Librarian. 3 unlikely heroes quest to save the steampunk nation, and none of their bosses are okay with any of this. And I'm here with Marcy Mahoney, author of ARCHWILDE, which is right there, and DILLY'S WINE and FLEA, which is also right there. And they are both magical, but they're very different stories. So tell me about your stories and what inspired you to write them.
Well, ARCHWILDE, I started writing it in high school because I wanted this specific story and I couldn't find it anywhere. I found elements of it in other things. You know, I was a huge Star Wars fan growing up. This is prequels, so original trilogy, and then the Timothy Zahn books and all those books. It was the 90s, so it was before any of the new stuff came out. So I was big into that. I was big into Masters of the Universe, the whole Jim Henson world, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I remember all that stuff.
Yeah. So I wanted this story that was had characters that I could identify with. I always read fantasy that was male characters, like Lord of the Rings is all male characters. There was nothing fun for the women characters to do. There was nothing for me as a teenage girl to be like, I want to be like her. But I had that in Princess Leia, I had that in She-Ra, I had that in a few different other types of TV characters, and I thought, I want to read a story. Oh, I was also obsessed with Disney at the time, so Sleeping Beauty was my favorite, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I don't know, Princess Aurora was kind of a badass and could fight with a sword and also had magical powers. And one of my favorite bad guys of all time was actually Bavmorda from Willow.
Okay. She's
a older woman who's one of the most fearsome, terrifying sorcerers ever. And I love Willow because it broke a lot of rules of typical fantasy at the time. So ARCHWILDE kind of came about because of all these things that I love, but I didn't see this exact storyline that I wanted. So I just started writing it in a notebook. And it kind of, sat on the shelf. I dealt with it for, pulled it out every couple of years and toyed with it and put it back. And then finally in my 40s, I just decided it's time to completely rewrite that whole thing and make it what it's supposed to be.
I'm glad you did, because I really enjoyed that story.
Thank you.
And it's kind of, I have a similar story for Rentsoc. It wasn't that it's the story that I always wanted to read, but nobody wrote it for me.
Yeah.
It's all these little things that I never fit into any other story that I was writing along the way. And I just kind of gathered in a box together, and I said, ooh, this box is full of interesting, fun things. Let's pour it out into a story together.
I could see that about that book, because there are so many fascinating elements to it that when you think about it, you'd be like, how are these all going to work together? But they do.
Yes.
They work perfectly together, and the world you've created is so fascinating and interesting and different than anything I've ever read before. So.
Well, Dilly's is very different from ARCHWILDE. Tell us about that.
So I love writing fantasy, but I also love writing magical realism. There's just something about setting a love story in the real world and then having, I want to say, plausible magic as opposed to laser bolts coming out of your fingers kind of a thing. Having more organic magic be a part of it. Dilly herself comes from a long line of generational witches.
Yes.
So it's passed down through the family. It's something that, like I said, more plausible in the sense that that's a real thing that people in this world really are. So, I don't know. Sometimes it's just fun looking around the real world and finding magic that's actually here.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And for mine, the magic that I came up with was mostly, I have a problem with magic systems that are just wide open and any spell could just come out of anywhere just to affect the plot and move it along.
Right.
I prefer a very narrow rules. So my wizards pull energy out of the universe and then turn it into a spell.
Yeah.
And there's only 3 schools of magic for the wizards. There's illusion, which my main character, Mitch the Adequate, is not good at all. There's healing, which he's quite good at. And then there's enchanting, which is making anything that's made with fresh wood or magical metals or even some lesser metals like iron come to life. So
like the rowboat.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the rowboat. The
Yep.
rowboat was very green wood. They didn't know it, and it just stayed alive for a long
The
time.
rowboat was such a character in itself. And who would have ever thought that of a rowboat? But it worked.
Yeah, the rowboat has its own little story arc in the story. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then there's one more school of magic, but it's not a school of magic. It's teleportation. It's never done on purpose, and it's executed by a sneeze.
Right.
Yes, and Mitch is unfortunately cursed with that sneezing problem, so he just randomly changes places with a nearby object against his will every time he sneezes.
Mm-hmm.
So-
But it works out hilariously and fortuitously.
Yes, it
in the
does.
story.
The sneeze has its own story arc too.
Which is also very cool if you think about, this thing that, again, a good story about magic where the magic is frowned upon or some specific kind of magic is frowned upon, but then it gets proven
Yes,
to
it's
be
proven
something
to be,
that nobody expected. I think is also very
it's
cool.
actually useful
Yeah.
and not just a detriment.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, my setting's pretty weird. It's everybody's living on the backs of giant animals. It's not entirely original because that's been done before.
Right.
The Color of Magic did it. In fact, when I read The Color of Magic, I was like, flying through space, the turtle, you're doing it wrong.
Do it this way.
But you created a place called Hobblebush Lake for DILLY'S Wine and Flea.
Mhm.
What was the inspiration for that?
So it's set in the Adirondack Mountains in
Mhm.
upstate New York, real place. And Hobblebush Lake is sort of an amalgamation of a variety of lake towns in the
Mhm.
Adirondacks. Lake town culture in the Adirondacks is a thing, It's
Yes.
a lot of other people, a lot of people from other states or from downstate come up there, especially in the summertime, and spend their summers up there. And it's very, and in the winter too, because winter sports, skiing and hiking and whatnot. And so I thought, why not create a town that's sort of an amalgamation of various other towns? It's not based on a one place, but it's based on the idea of a lake town in the Adirondacks. And I tried to capture that feel and make it, a really nice little community where
Mhm.
everybody knows each other, but also everybody supports each other, which that's the ideal, right?
And you used to go up to a place like that.
Yes, my folks actually live in the Adirondacks in a lake town, so
Oh.
whenever I visit them, I get to go experience that, which is nice. So.
And it took you a little effort to come up with the name Hobblebush Lake because they were all taken.
Yes, they're trying to find a lake town name that sounds like it belongs in the Adirondacks,
Yeah.
and then doing the Google search and oh crap, that place exists too. I was asking my mom because my parents are avid hikers. That's actually how I got my name. I'm named after Mount Marcy, which is the tallest peak in the Adirondacks, and so my mom knows all the history of everything up there, and she's a gardener and she's really into hiking and plants and all the things. So I was like, what could I name this town after? And she told me about this plant called Hobblebush. Well, it's one of the names of it. But it's called Hobblebush because of the way that it grows along the ground, almost
Mhm.
vine-like, and it trips up
Okay.
hikers. And one of the old wives' name for it is Witch's Hobble, which I was like, well, that's super cool. I gotta use that.
Oh, that's a given. It's name set.
Exactly, yeah. But it grows berries on it over the
Uh-huh.
summer, and then as I've learned, if you ever want to harvest hobbleberries, the best time to harvest them is in late September, after the first frost.
Okay.
And you can do all kinds of things with them. You can bake with them.
Huckleberries sounds like something from a cartoon.
It does, but it's a real thing. And so I thought, well, what other cooler name for Dilly's, not only the town, but the wine that she makes. She makes seasonal wine out of the hobbleberries
All right.
in the story. So
Very cool.
yeah.
And you had an inspiration for the people in her coven as well. They're a very interesting little collection of characters. And it's not easy, I'll tell you as a writer, it's not easy to get a group of people into your story and give them each a little personality and have them go through the story and each be its own character. So tell us about that.
It is tricky, especially when they're not the main characters.
Yes.
You don't want to overload the story because you want to give your main characters the main play. I only did 3 points of view in the story, and it was Lily, who's the main character, Malcolm, who's the love interest, and then Chip, who's the bad guy. So I couldn't give any other. I didn't want to give any other points of view, but I still wanted to make sure each of them felt like their own person. So it was a little easy in the sense that it was they're a crafting group, so they each had their different sort of crafts, and then I sort of based my idea. Okay, who's this person? Oh, this person, paints D&D miniatures, or I don't think I wrote D&D. I think I wrote tabletop RPG, but D&D miniatures.
Yes.
And so what's their story, and how old are they, and what do they look like, and what's their whole vibe, and then I kind of built off of that for each one, and sort of basically made a friend group. I don't typically write about people I know, but one of the characters is an homage to a friend of mine who passed a while back, who was my pen pal for a long time, and we used to work together at a newspaper, and that's Hugh, the character of Hugh. He was my buddy, and we used to write together, so I thought I would homage to him in the story.
That's
in his
wonderful.
memory.
Yeah, in my story, I did the opposite of an homage. The bad guys in the story are the Crochets. Really, not the entire society of the Crochets, just one specific crochet. And but the society has also done wrong. Not that other societies haven't. And that was inspired by a turf war at a restaurant where my writing group was meeting several years ago, and we were sharing the space, with a group of knitters, and they didn't like sharing, so they started a turf war that consisted mostly of loud talking and just being generally rude to us. And as a group of fierce writers, we immediately surrendered and moved to the far side of the restaurant completely without even trying. We just bugged out of there. And so now the knitters are the Crochets, and they are forever immortalized in Rentsoc Book 1 as the bad guys.
I love that. And if you've been in a writer's group, that's a super relatable thing. Our writer's group had a similar rival group, and it was the Saturday morning sports watchers.
Oh, really?
Because we used to meet at a pub. And the owner was super happy to have us meet there, but then these sports guys would come in, and we'd start getting edged out, even though we were being totally nice and accommodating.
Dude, everywhere that I've ever met with a writing group, it was for coffee, not alcohol. I don't know how alcohol would hit me.
We didn't even, it was morning, so we did breakfast.
You did breakfast?
Because they had a good breakfast menu, so we order
wow.
a breakfast. We were we were good paying customers there, but
Yeah.
alas, the sports ballers won.
We both have magic systems. We talked about mine. What was the inspiration for the magic system in DILLY'S and ARCHWILDE?
Well, ARCHWILDE, I kind of made it up as I went, because again, I started writing it when I was 15. So all I knew then was Disney magic, or the Force, and whatever I saw in cartoons and stuff. I didn't really have an organized idea for it. And as I pulled it out over the years and revised it, it got a little more cohesive. Like you were saying before, you don't want to just have any spell could do anything and say, Deus Ex Machina, kind of oh, this spell will save everything. Didn't want that. So I had to, it ups the stakes when you narrow the scope on the magic. So I had to sort of really sit down and figure out, okay, what are the limits of Julia's magic? What are the limits of Maya's magic? What's the limits of the blood magic that Azor uses? And actually coming up with the blood magic was I needed to have something that's the antithesis of the sort of, I don't want to say nature-based, but it's natural magic that the natural mages are born with. And blood magic is stolen magic, because if you're killing people to take their life force to turn into magic, that's bad. It's generally bad. So I thought, going on the opposites there. With Dilly, I was looking more towards traditional witchcraft, well, eclectic witchcraft, but based in sort of existing magic systems in our real world. And the bad guys' magic, I started out going more of an alchemy route, but then as I wrote the story and I started realizing the needs of what I needed the magic to do, I ended up going more of an elemental magic.
Yes.
And that seemed to work better. So it just sort of evolved based out of the needs of the story, really, and then narrowing it down to make it more dramatic.
Giving it rules,
Yeah,
so that
giving
the
it
rules help to define the narrative as
Yeah.
it goes forward.
And, you know, I play D&D. I enjoy D&D, but D&D has very defined magic rules too, and I don't use that as my like base for writing magic, but I do, seeing how that vast, you know, world of magic, all the possibilities are siphoned off into such narrow windows. I think that really helped too, as I was, you know, learning and growing as a writer, to sort of see, oh, here's a good way of doing that, and how you can up the stakes by having this only do so much, or this takes so much out of a character if they cast this thing or whatever. So
yeah, if you're just like throwing magic around with no consequence, then it's a lot less fun that way.
It's boring. Like, it's boring to not have like consequence involved. So
yeah, the crochet in my story is like constantly tapping her body to the very core and like wearing herself out. So enjoy that part of my narrative.
I mean, isn't that though a metaphor for being a writer?
Oh yeah, that is definitely how writers operate.
Writing Dilly was a very different experience than writing ARCHWILDE.
Oh yeah.
ARCHWILDE I wrote over the course of 30 years and took my time with it. And Dilly I wrote in a year and a half, with a chronic illness.
Oh wow.
And a really hard, fast deadline, and the world being how it is right now.
Yeah, I know.
It was literally like channeling the story, getting it on the page in like the most organized fashion that I could, and like just putting my soul on the page as I was writing. And I am very exhausted from that. I am still exhausted from that, and that thing published in October. So.
Oh, I can totally feel that, because my other two books that I wrote, the first one was a YA adventure story, and the second one was Godless Armageddon, which is about an atheist in the afterlife fighting a war for all human souls. And it's not the afterlife that you're picturing, it's a whole new one that's totally different from anything that's come before. And it's a reality where everybody's a cloud, and teaching myself how to write a story in that reality was not easy. That was like the hardest book I've ever written in my life. It's the hardest book I will ever write.
Yeah.
This one was easy to write, even when I had to make corrections to it, and all the editing was so much easier, because it was just a pleasure to read.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure,
It was so much fun to read.
Yeah.
And now the sequel I'm working on this is coming along quite quickly and looking really good. I just did a really great scene. I'll tell you about it later.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and, in addition to your two works of fiction up there, they're really quite awesome. You have a series of prompt books.
I do.
So what started the whole prompt book thing?
So our writers group, we weren't a feedback group, we were a prompt-based group. So we'd come to the meeting, we'd give out a prompt, we'd write for 20 minutes. The whole idea was to get a story out of your head. It didn't have to be good, didn't have to even be coherent. It was just to get you writing. Like, when you get a pen,
it's like for practice.
And you need to scribble before the ink comes out?
Yes.
This was the scribbling. And then you go home and you can work on whatever you want to, but the ink's already flowing, kind of idea. So, and sometimes some good stories came out of that we've, many of us have gone and taken on to do other things with. In fact, Dilly didn't come out of that. Dilly came out of a different thing. But it started as just a one-off short story and then became a novel, So, because I was coming up with prompts all the time for writers group, I just like writing whimsical story starters. So the first book I did was called Words of Whimsy, and it's 100 whimsical story starters where I give you the first couple sentences of the story and you run with it. And then I've done 3 more prompt books since then. So.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you think of one writing prompt that sticks in your head that you really love that you wrote?
I mean, that's 400 prompts.
Should we pick a random one?
I can think, there's one, because in Words of Whimsy, There's one. I used a lot of like public domain etchings, like old timey Victorian etchings, and so sometimes I would match the prompt to a picture.
Yes.
And there's this one in there of like, and I'm not going to get the wording of it right, but it's this like bird man, this like very floofy bird guy, but he's wearing like, you know, a top, a button-up coat and fancy pants and a little top hat, and it's all about how, you know, he stepped into the ballroom in his attire or something like that. But that one, yeah, that's probably the one that sticks out in my head.
Yeah, and they were really popular for a while.
That book is my bestseller.
Yeah.
Words of Whimsy is my bestseller. So.
Well, this is not Words of Whimsy. This one's about Halloween.
This one, my husband designs all my book covers, and for this one I told him I want it to look like 1980s Scholastic Book Fair, like Halloween book. And I think he nailed it.
Yeah,
it
that
looks
was
just
good.
like something you'd find at the Scholastic Book Fair. It made me so happy.
That's awesome.
So those were my favorite things to get at the book fair, were the little Halloween. They're like Halloween things with the like cutouts that you could like punch the doors and windows out and make like a little haunted house out of. I still remember one in kindergarten that has never left my brain.
That's very cool.
It looked like that. So.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of the Halloween Sounds album that we checked out of the library when I was a little kid.
Yep. I still have that cassette tape. I do. Horror Sounds of the Night.
Oh yeah, I put a lot of miles on that.
Yeah.
Fenzhauken Library, I'm sorry for wearing out your record when I was a child. You have been also a regular at some fairs. Do you have any fairs or conventions that you consider your favorite?
Well, my husband and I do the Jackalope Art Fair
in
Pasadena twice a year, which is it's a fantastic fair. There's a few authors, but it's artisans and food and craftsmen. And my husband, Marcy Mahoney, the Type and Pint, he's a poet with his vintage typewriter, so he sits there and writes poetry for people all day and sells his wares, and I sell books and some of my art. So that's a really good one because of the variety of things.
That's Brian's work right there.
Last year I did, it was the first year of this particular, it was called the Enchanted Realms Book Festival, and it was a fantasy book festival, and it was amazing. And they've changed their name this year. It's Dragons and Dreams is hosting it, so they're doing the same festival in the fall, but it's 2 days this year. It's October 10th and 11th, and then they're also doing like something in the summertime. I think it's in June. I'm not doing that one, but it sounds really cool. So you can find that, I'm sure, on their website. And then LA Comic-Con I've done a couple times, and that was pretty cool.
Oh, I haven't done LA Comic-Con. Did you have a table there?
I got a booth with several other author friends. We go by the Emporium of Wondrous Tomes. And we have a variety, we're all genre writers.
Yes.
Except Brian, his genre is poetry.
Yes.
But, and there are multiple kinds of genres within his poetry. But, so we basically set up an old-timey bookshop with all of our books and our merch and stuff, and it was awesome. It was a really fun way to come together as authors, helping each other, but also getting the word out about our stuff. So we're going to be doing the Emporium again in a couple of weeks at the LA Times Festival of Books.
Excellent. Yes, that's in my newsletter.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that today. Yeah.
You and my friend Vance, who also has a Writers Talk About Stuff video up on YouTube right now. You can watch it right after this one if you haven't. It's a really good one. He's going to have a booth there, and if you're not signed up for my newsletter, go to scottcoonsci-fi.com and sign up for my newsletter, and you'll find out about all kinds of things going on in the LA area and around the country for writers and also for readers. But it's mostly for writers, but readers you can subscribe to. You'll enjoy it as well.
I always say your newsletter is the most useful newsletter I've ever gotten for writers. Like, it's fantastic. It's still full of stuff and so many opportunities and interesting things, both to attend but also participate in as a writer. So, highly recommend.
Yeah, I subscribe to all the email lists so you don't have to. You said you had a booth coming up, right?
Yes. LA Times Festival of Books. We're going to be in booth 855 as the Emporium of Wondrous Tomes. And then I think the weekend after that is the Jackalope Pasadena Festival.
All the way down in Pasadena.
Yeah, Pasadena. It's in the Central Park in Pasadena. So
Okay.
I'll be there with at the Type of Pints booth.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think I have the LitFest in Pasadena coming up in May. I'll put a
Sounds
link to
about
all
right.
these fests down below. Trust me, I'll make sure that you guys can get there and see us. And I'm going to be doing queer and literature, and the nexus of those two things with a little panel at the LitFest.
Awesome.
26.
That's
2026.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Me and Ree Lee, who also has a video on here. You should watch her video as well. What will you be writing next? Do you have a sequel planned for either of these books?
Well, Dilly's a standalone, but I feel like I might visit other members of the Cleary family, Lily and Dilly's, lineage at different points in time. So, but probably not for a while. ARCHWILDE, I'm working on books 2 and 3 simultaneously, so that there's not as
Excellent.
big of a gap when I go to release them. But at the moment, I'm taking a little breather. I'm dabbling in some things, but writing Dilly last year was grueling, and in a beautiful way, like in a good way. It was completely transforming writing this book. It's a book about grief and challenging your fears, and doing that in writing while actively doing that
Yes.
in life it takes a lot out of you, but it also teaches you a lot about yourself. So that's why the book is dedicated to Fergus, my kitty, he passed away the day after I sent the last chapter to my editor. I think he was sticking around to see it through, but he was my writing buddy, and he had been diagnosed with cancer about 2 years prior, and it was a long, slow cancer. So we knew that he was deteriorating, but he was his little jerk self right up until the end. But he sat with me every day while I wrote that, and so when you're actively anticipating grief like that and processing it as it's happening, like as you're watching the thing happen and you're writing about grief, it definitely, and there's all kinds of grief. There's not just grief for loss of somebody. There's grief for loss of a way of life, or loss of anything in the world. And right now there's a lot of grief in this world, so it's a heck of a time to write a book about grief, but it was cathartic in its way.
Yeah, I can totally understand. I'm glad you got to go through that with your cat before he passed away.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any signs in my life, but I very much love cats. I don't know if you can tell that at all.
Yeah, for sure. I got an inkling about that.
I have 2 black cats who are not anywhere near this camera right now because there's another human in my place, and they're afraid of humans. They're smart
babies.
cats. They know better than to hang out with humans. And their names are Logan and Hank, and they're named after Wolverine and Beast.
I was gonna say, is that an X-Men reference? Very nice.
Yes. Only Wolverine calls Beast Hank.
That's true.
Nobody else uses that name. I always saw it as a sign of how close they are to each other.
Yeah.
And that's why I named them that.
Yeah.
So they're really close brothers. They just chased each other around earlier today.
That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Fergus was, his full name was Fergus Hammertime. That's what happens when you let your husband pick the middle name for your cat. Not that I disapprove. I thought it was an awesome middle name, but still. And he wasn't really named after anybody, but obviously MC Hammer. And, and our other cat, Fiona Shazam, because she has a lightning bolt on her back. She was named after. Did you ever watch the show Burn Notice?
No.
Oh, it's such a good show. Bruce Campbell's on it. He's one of my heroes.
Oh, then I should watch it.
Yeah, he's fantastic. There's a character on that show who was basically Gabrielle Anwar played her. Her name was Fiona Glennan. She was a weapons specialist, like a bomb expert, and she was a badass. And we named our cat Fiona after her. Our cat is the biggest chicken shit on the planet. She is not at all like her namesake. So, well, what are you gonna do?
Oh, my previous cat was named Horus, basically the god of vengeance.
Right?
He bit everyone he ever met in his entire life, including the last vet tech to try and keep him alive a little longer. Bit him right before he died.
Oh boy.
And then he said goodbye to me, and I miss him a lot. He was technically in a big way. He was my very first pet that was mine personally.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I miss him a lot.
Yeah. They are little pieces of our soul, for sure. Fergie was. I don't know if he fits the definition, the witch definition of familiar, because familiar is a term that gets thrown around a lot for our pets, and there's a specific definition for it, and then there's like, oh, this cat is like my soul. He was my soul cat. He was, I don't know what that says about me, that he was a little shit, and he was my soul cat, but he really was.
Just pretend he's filling in that part of the personality you didn't have, so that's why he's a little shit.
I think, he was a little bit more bold than I tend to be, but like I think my inner self might be a lot like him, but I have more restraint, probably because I'm a human. I don't know.
I get that.
But yeah, there's a cat in Dilly's Wine and Flea too, and his name is Leonardo, but everybody calls him Nards. Well, Malcolm calls him Nards, and so most people call him Nards, but Lily refuses to call him Nards. But he's kind of an amalgam of like all the cats I've had, but he's not at all little shit like Fergie was. But he's a love. Fergie was a love. He was a little shit, but he was a love. So I feel like there's an orange cat actually in Archwild too, but he's only mentioned once. She gets more play in future books because he's the neighboring country's princess's cat.
All right.
So
So hear that when more Archwild comes out, read it for the cat.
Yeah, you'll get to see more of Jax, Aurelia's cat.
Well, in mine, my character actually does have a familiar. His name is Osbert the Hummingbird.
That's right.
Yeah,
and he acts like a proper familiar.
Yes,
he's a conduit for the magic.
Yeah, he actually. I just recently wrote a short story. I don't know if it's going to get published in the place I sent it to, but it's a very focused story that's just about Mitch when he turned 14 years old and went and did a ceremony. It's like a traditional thing that he has to do just to see whether or not he has magic. And if by the end of the thing his familiar like pops into existence, then he's a wizard. If not, and because Mitch's family doesn't have a strong line of magic in it, it's a lot harder for him than all the other kids that are there that night. And there are a couple of obstacles in the way. So keep an eye out on my website for when I publish that short story. So you'll want to see that.
Yeah.
And speaking of catharsis, the reason why I've been focused on this book and also the working on the sequel to it rather than anything else is because things are so crazy right now that we could all use a laugh. So that's why I've been focused on that.
A laugh and some hope.
Yes.
That's the thing. The hope that like knowledge and truth and like goodness will prevail in these chaotic times. Yeah. But certainly a laugh. Yeah. That's why, Dilly, it's about grief in some respects, but it's a rom-com. It's funny.
It is.
I intentionally tried to write it to be funny, and who doesn't love banter, right? So
I did love the rom-com element of it. I was like, oh, this has got a rom-com in here. I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah, I try to put, pretty much anything I ever write will have either a romantic element, a magic element. There will always be magic in everything I write, but and probably a horror element, because I grew up reading, John Belair's, and it was pre-Goosebumps. It was the Christopher Pike books. Do you remember those? There was all these like teenage horror books that were like out in the like late 80s, early 90s. I read a lot of those.
I vaguely remember those, yeah.
And then I read a lot of V.C. Andrews back in the day.
That I remember.
Oh, that's looking back on that, I'm like, how did I read that when I was 14? But everybody was. So, So I always like that kind of sort of gothic horror element to things, and so there's always magic, a little bit of horror, and romance in the stories that I write. But not a ton of spice, but I'm working up to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of spice in my book either. It's like the jump cut right there.
Yeah. Dilly's the first book I didn't do the jump cut, but I didn't go into super detail because I've just not. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think I read that stuff, but I don't feel confident writing it yet. I don't know if I'll ever grow into that, but I also feel like, I don't know, I prefer a slightly less Mad Lib words,
Yes.
sort of, because it takes me out of the emotion of the moment sometimes. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. I have no problem with that sort of, but sometimes it's fun to read that. But writing it for me, it takes me out of the story and makes it more about like logistics. It's hard enough writing a sword fighting, like a battle scene. Like I don't want to get into the logistics of writing that. So, but Archwilde's got the closed door thing. But Dilly, I challenge myself to try to write more of an open door version. But it's a slightly back from the full on kind of spice.
Well, at the end of my book, I have 2 characters that are put up in an apartment basically for 3 days.
Right.
But that entire passage is all about the paperwork, because the reason why they're in an apartment for 3 days is because the steampunks are very big on paperwork.
Right.
And the paperwork that requires the most paperwork is new paperwork. So before you can make new paperwork, there's so much paperwork involved. So that took 3 days.
It gave me Hitchhiker's Guide vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That's funny.
This has been Writers Talk About Stuff, and we're a couple of writers and we talked about stuff. Thank you so much, Marcy Mahoney, for coming out and doing this with me today.
Thank you for having me. This was
All right.
awesome.
This was a great time.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.